need to have them here. So it is almost 7 o'clock.
Tell me what I do. I usually always do it. It's not doing it. It's last.
I'd like to call the meeting over. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tracy, are we good to go? Tracy? Yes, sir. Okay. Always have to check with our technology first before we start our meeting. Make sure we're recording. Welcome everyone, ladies and gentlemen, to our September 18th Fishers City Council meeting. We have no announcements, no proclamations. We do have a presentation, a swearing-in ceremony for the Fishers Police Department. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Are we ready? Yeah. All right. That's outstanding. Chief? Chief, the floor is yours, sir.
Push. We good?
That's better.
Just want to welcome on our latest hires to the Fishers Police Department. We're going to swear them in tonight, so thanks for the time and thanks for allowing for the opportunity. Raise your right hands, please. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and comply with the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution and laws of the State of Indiana, the laws and ordinances of the City of Fishers, Indiana, the rules and regulations of the Fishers Police Department, and the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a police officer to the best of my ability. I usually hightail it faster than someone has a question. Any question? We good?
We're good. Welcome to the City of Fishers, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm just going to calculate.
Yes, yeah.
No, we aren't.
Let these fine people get some pictures and we'll get on with business, ladies and gentlemen. And you can tell it's tonight we're talking about the budget. They're all hightailing it out of here. We'll give them a moment to exit. Moving on to committee reports, we did have a finance committee meeting. We've had a couple meetings. The report is attached. Spent a significant amount of time going through the budget. We'll be presenting that tonight, recommending for first reading this evening, which will include a public hearing. So we did have that. Department reports, Health Department report is attached. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
A motion by Pete. Do I have a second? Second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Moving on to the regular agenda item, budget. A request to approve the 2024 municipal budget. Tonight's first reading and public hearing. Good evening, Elliot.
Good evening. I'm going to try not to take it personally that most of the folks left as I got up here. So good evening. In August, Mayor Fadness, for the 18th time in a row, I believe, presented his proposed budget for the upcoming year. Anticipation builds.
Not soon enough, right? He does this every time as we play for more budget, right? Good move, Tracy.
Blood is baked. Blood is baked. Okay. I am still happy to be before you this evening for the next step in that process, which is the first reading and public hearing. Okay, so the mayor's presentation is posted on our city budget website, as well as a video from the council meeting in August where he walked through his intentions for the 2024 budget. Since then, over the last 27 days, the Finance Committee has met 3 times for multiple hours to walk through this budget and deep dive into it. We invited our financial consultant, Mike Reuter, a true subject matter expert, to walk through our fiscal plan and our financial outlook. We literally started in 1990 and walked into present day to understand where we sit financially. We invited many of our department heads to have a conversation and provide information on their specific piece of the proposed budget to the Finance Committee as well. Our department heads really deserve a lot of the credit for this budget. They all came prepared with fiscally responsible and realistic budgets, while at the same time asking for funding to enable them to push their departments forward every single day and throughout collectively an entire budget year. So we heard from Chief Gebhardt in police, Chief Arusa in fire, Monica Heltz, public health, Hatem Mecki, engineering, Eric Pethel, public works, Marissa Deckert, Jake Reeder McSoley from Parks and Recreation and our quality of life initiatives, Lisa Bradford, of course, our controller, and probably too often from myself as well. So tonight, the intent is to hold that public hearing as part of the first reading process. I'll provide a recap of the presentation that the mayor went through in August. Then I'll step aside and allow our residents to ask any questions or speak on behalf of the budget. So first and foremost, the proposed budget remains unchanged from the August council meeting. And as a reminder, as a result of your guys' fiscal discipline, as the mayor presented last month, we are financially as strong as we have ever been. We have the lowest property tax rate among the large 4 cities in Hamilton County. We have a record cash reserves, which I'll talk about further in this presentation. And we received the GFOA Certificate of Achievement in Excellence for Financial Reporting every single year since I was in kindergarten 34 years ago. So in 2024, we'll see the completion of both the Arts and Municipal Complex on the bottom left-hand side of the screen, as well as our Fishers Event Center in November of 2024. We'll start construction on the Community Center, as well as State Road 37 and 141st Street. The highlights of the 2024 budget can be grouped into 5 significant buckets. Again, they are proposing for the 3rd straight year a property tax rate decrease. We're proposing historic investments to our educators, to the tune of $500,000 worth of grant money directly into our classrooms. We're proposing extraordinary investments in our neighborhoods, which we feel is the most impactful location for the folks that call Fishers home. Continued investments in road infrastructure as we have for the past several years, as well as continue to invest in public safety and our core services. This is the nuts and bolts of it. So we're looking for $164 million, just north of $164 million to cover our operating, our capital, and our debt service obligations for 2024. And this is a balanced budget, of course. So we're proposing expenditures less than anticipated revenue in 2024. Quickly again, we've mentioned this several times now, this budget does propose a property tax rate decrease for the 3rd straight year, which will get us to pre-2020 property tax rates. And what does this mean? We look at our neighbors. This is the lowest property tax rate in Hamilton County, beating our previous year's property tax rate as well. So operationally, in 2024, we are proposing once again to invest in our most valuable resource, which is our team, of course, the folks that come to the City of Fishers every single day with a simple goal of making this the best place in the world to live, work, and play. So we are asking for a 5% salary increase for all of our personnel. For public safety, we're asking for an increase in our longevity pay from a max of $4,000 to $5,000. On the personnel front, we're recommending 3 additional firefighters, 3 new police officers, 2 additional school resource officers, a civilian forensic technician to support the incredible work and advancements being made in utilizing technology to get rid of bad guys. The health department recommending a health inspector, a public nurse, and employee to support the management of grants and billing. IT is shifting 1 contractual labor to full-time, and we're recommending 2 additional team members to our public works team, predominantly to focus on our work on sidewalks. Our agri-park, going down to the bottom there, is an incredible amenity, and we're recommending transitioning 1 part-time employee to a full-time to match the demand signal we've received from our community, which is a good problem to have. And as we break around the community center, yet this year, we're recommending 2 staff members to help bring that project to life towards the end of 2024. So this has been covered both in the mayor's presentation in August and several times throughout the finance committee meetings, but want to highlight the road projects we expect to see in 2024 as a result of this funding. 2 roundabouts, one at 126th Street in Southeastern and one at 96th Street in Allisonville. 2 road widening projects, one at Cumberland Road and one at 136th Street from Southeastern to Prairie Baptist, and then multiple resurfacing packages, which we've done for the past 2 years now. So as mentioned, we do have historic surplus to the tune of $51.6 million. Our internal policy requires us to have about $15.1 million on hand. So we worked very hard to put together a plan to strategically spend down some of those cash surpluses to the tune of $12 million, focusing on making key investments throughout our community to make a true impact for our residents. Again, Mayor detailed those in August, but I will highlight that $12 million plan here. It really targets 3 strategic areas. One is expanding trail connectivity and further engaging our community's ability to recreate and move around. A direct investment in our neighborhoods, our roads, sidewalks, curb appeal, and the aesthetics throughout some key nodes in our community. And finally, again, investing directly into our classrooms. So the breakdown of that $12 million, $3 million of that goes to trail connectivity and engagement, specifically 126th Street from Lantern to Allisonville, 106th from Hoosier to Cumberland, and Lantern Road from 116th to Heritage Meadows, and a trail node outside of our hub and spoke building to include a restroom, which is a much needed asset along the trail. $8.5 million of that is for our neighborhood and community vibrancy, which covers a handful of items. $3.5 million of that is landscaping, specifically 126th Street and the remaining roundabouts we have through our community. $1 million going to sidewalk repairs, increase in our neighborhood matching grant from $100,000 to $750,000, $250,000 for a urban forestry program, and $3 million directly towards 96th Street as well. And finally, again, the $500,000 for a first of its kind micro grant program directly to the teachers in our classroom. So in conclusion, we're very proud of this budget. We think it accomplishes a great deal. Again, property tax decrease for the third year in a row, invest in our core services, public safety, public works, and historic investment of $12 million of our cash surplus. So with that brief overview, I'll step aside for the public hearing. The mayor's here, controller, myself, happy to answer any questions from any of our residents during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Elliot, good job, as always. At this point, we're going to open up for public hearing. Anybody wishing to come forward, have any questions, please state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Good
And
evening.
welcome.
Good evening, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Marty Wood. I reside at 13859 Fieldcrest Drive in Fishers. And I'd just like to say, when I first got this in the mail, I was excited to see this. The trajectory was good, the comparison was interesting, but having put budgets together for my division and for my customers, my clients, for my entire career, which ended gratefully a couple of years ago. I'm now retired. I always treated my budgets, my people, as if it was my money, okay? I think that's very important, especially in the public sector. And so I thought, you know, this is great, but could we do better than this? Should we do better than this? So I took a deep dive into, you know, the information that was just reviewed. And a couple things caught my eye that I wanted to just share tonight. First of all, under fiscal strength, you know, some good information here, but I got caught early in my career by somebody saying, you know, the budget's about numbers, it's not about marketing this. So at some point we got to draw a line, get away from the marketing noise and get into the numbers. But I caught record cash reserves, and as I found later, you know, we have a basic, I'm all for cash reserves, makes perfect sense. We have a minimum, but we're at 150% of that. And whose money is that? Okay? So that's the question. Whose money is that? What do we need? Has there been a risk analysis done on the reason behind these excessive cash reserves or this big number? You know, perhaps that is something that needs to be looked at. As I continued down, I saw, you know, decrease in property tax. That's especially good, especially the last several years with inflated home sales driving those property taxes up. But I saw also a first ever investment in school innovation. Now, I wasn't aware that city charter had responsibility over the libraries or the schools. So, you know, what are we doing putting money that way, especially with the school board coming out with a referendum, you know, in November. So I don't know that that's appropriate spending of city taxpayer dollars. I don't have an issue with the subject, but it's just what bucket it goes in and who's paying for it. I saw some words like historic investment in neighborhoods. You know, we're living in a high inflation world right now with excessive costs everywhere we look. We've got a lot of people out there that are on fixed income, that are running paycheck to paycheck, both parents or both people in the household working. And, you know, in a time like this, most budgets are put together based on need and not want. You may get a couple wants in there, but if you start throwing a lot of wants in there, you're going way overboard. And, you know, something would have been more appropriate to say would have been critical neighborhood investments. You know, we've got some needs in neighborhoods, all right? No doubt about it. I'd rather put the money there than going overboard. Going on, I see, you know, out of a $164.4 million budget, we've got $80 million, 48% roughly, in the general fund. I don't know where the transparency is. I don't know what you look at. I'm sure the departments have come in and, you know, tried to justify, but, you know, typical budget, what works, what's not working, how do we move money from one side to the other? You know, what can we do to make this as efficient budget as possible for the taxpayers? This is the taxpayers' money, okay? Couple other things that struck me. I was at a presentation about probably a year ago, but Chief Orzo said that, you know, with the housing that we have right now in City of Fishers, with the code changes, we almost never have a fire. You know, the big need is in EMS and in, you know, mental health requirements, things like this. So when I see that we're going to buy a new fire truck, when I see we're going to buy a bunch of vehicles, you know, again, is inflation working against us in those purchases? Or have we looked at alternatives like, you know, I don't know, there's probably brand new 2021 fire trucks that just got chips put in them, you know, sitting out there like a lot of vehicles are. You know, we looked at some of those alternatives to help the taxpayers. I get concerned about some of the projects. I heard the mayor, in fact, I believe last week in the State of the City address indicate that, you know, we've got so much on our plate, we're concerned about getting things done that we have on our plate right now. I don't know if you guys as city council members have talked to all your constituents where they really feel about some of these projects, all right? But my neighborhood, a lot of people are real upset with some of these projects. One of the big ones that's been pointed out to me has been the Geist Water Park. Beautiful park, okay? I've seen people over there. I want to see it finished. I think, you know, we've gone this far, we've got to finish it. But we've got some critical things we need to look at that park because it was closed a lot of days this year because of the water quality issues. And, you know, people are going to stop bringing their little kids over there to sit in the sand and you know, go into that part of the water when you got that kind of an issue. And so, you know, we need to look at those projects, where are we spending the money, are we spending them appropriately? And I'd like to have you guys just start asking some of these questions. You know, the purpose of the league or the local government is supposed to be our most representative form of government, all right? You guys are effectively the equal of the legislative branch. People think we got 3 equal branches. We don't. The legislative branch is the most powerful by far. You decide what to spend money on, what bills to write, what laws to write, and if you don't do either one, nothing gets done, okay? You're supposed to hold people accountable. So you need to ask questions. Talk to your constituents, challenge the administration. And one last comment is, I've seen and heard from several people that have questioned this, but that several services years ago used to be bid to contractors, competitively bid, an RFP would go out. I don't know how good the RFPs were as far as level setting everybody bidding. I don't know how good the bids were. I know there's an effort in managing bids. I did that most of my career. But, you know, we've pulled a lot of services in. So I think a study needs to be looked at is how much have we increased city overhead, city administrative costs? We're having this problem in the school districts all across the state. We got a bunch of money, didn't help the test scores, but we really jumped up on the overhead of the administrative costs. We don't need to do that in our municipal government. We need to keep things competitive and manage people properly. And if we can do it cheaper ourselves, we got to check that every so often against competitive bids to make sure we're doing it ourselves. But I think we as Fishers are heading in a great direction. I love this city. I'm asking you, can we do better? Look at some of these things, and can we do better? What do you think this would look like if this was a 0.5 number instead of a 0.7? I saw 2 numbers. I saw a 0.7065 and a 0.707. So I don't know which one it ended up at, but I think we can get to 0.5. And I don't care about being compared to Westfield and Noblesville. I don't live there. I live here. Okay? And we should if we want to do anything to help those other neighboring communities, let's set the bar a little higher and let's do better ourselves. Okay? And I'd like to thank Pete Peterson for paying attention. I'm his constituent, and I haven't seen you around in the 10 years I've been here, but other than at these meetings, but I appreciate it.
I hadn't been hiding.
Thanks, Marty. Good to see you as always. Anybody else wish to come forward, please?
Hey,
Yep.
it's Ross Reinhardt, 7704 Creekside Court. Wouldn't miss all this fun. I'm particularly excited because looking at this budget, I see a coupon for 132,000 times off. And that makes me excited because I think that's smart. And what I'm talking about is the pedestrian and investments in the pedestrian and bike infrastructure. And to explain that number a little bit more, if you take a trip that would have been completed in maybe a mid-size SUV around 4,200 pounds, and instead make that trip on a bicycle, it would cause 132,000 times less wear on our streets, which it goes directly to our infrastructure, which goes directly to our bottom line and helps make our dollars stretch farther. Even if you're not the one walking or biking, our city's money is going to go farther with that little bit of a mode shift. So I'm super excited about the investments we're making in the connectivity, in the bridge. I'd in fact like us to even take it farther, because one cool thing about these investments is they're not just benefiting drivers like driver infrastructure would, but all ages and abilities, like the 14-year-old riding their bike over to Target. They're all benefiting from these investments we're making, which is really exciting. I'd love to see more of it. Additionally, when we're working on our resurfacing projects and whatnot, this is a critical time when I've seen many cities talking about having an opportunity to also expand this bikeability by improving the design of the streets to slow cars. If you if you have good standards in place so that you have designs that help lower the speed the cars are going to travel on the road. Anytime we're touching these streets, we can be progressively making them better and better, safer, and more open for everybody to be able to use for transportation. One final thing that I was missing in this budget that I'd really love to see is some kind of investment in public transit. It goes with walking, biking, and that I can only walk and bike so far. And if we have public transit, that's a multiplier effect for being able to get to all corners of our community and to surrounding communities. So I was sad not to see it in there, but that's something I'd love to see someday. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward? Seems no one to come. Yep. Bob, how are you?
I'm Robert Evans. I live at 10707 Burning Ridge Lane in the Quaker Ridge subdivision, where I'm the current HOA president. All of you already know that my focus is on maintenance of our streets that are in need of repair, and getting our sidewalks to be compliant. But I do have a couple of questions about the budget. In August, Mayor Fadness mentioned a couple of things, and one of them was that the Vibrant Neighborhood Matching Grant would go from a 50-50 proposal to an 80-20 proposal. So does that mean $2,000 from a neighborhood and $8,000 from the city of Fishers for a $10,000 project? Or are we talking about the neighborhood still comes up with $5,000 and the city comes up with $20,000? So that's still 80-20 either way.
Cap up to $15,000, correct, George? It's an 80-20
So 80-20 match up to 15,000. Very good. And the other thing is, we are thrilled with the trail extension from Cumberland Road to Hoosier Road. The people of Quaker Ridge have been able to walk from Hamilton Pass to Cumberland on the trail for the past 30 years and then back, because that's as far as it goes. We do have a concern about pedestrian safety there. In the 4 years that I've lived here, at least 5 cars have left 106th Street and gone off the road in that little area between Hamilton Pass and Cumberland Road, the area that we can currently walk. Thankfully, no one has been seriously injured in that time. Now, 2 of those cars took out the fence that's on the other side of the path behind Quaker Ridge. 2 of them, I just got pictures of tire tracks, and then 1 went off the south side and took out the brick wall. Along Brooks School Road, there's a aesthetically pleasing pedestrian protection guardrail. And as you're planning that, particularly Engineer Mackey, if you would think about how do you protect the pedestrians. And then the other aspect is, I don't know whether you're looking at the north side where we already have part of a trail, or the south side, but how do people get across 106th Street? If it's on the south side, how do the people in my neighborhood get across? If it's on the north side, how the people in Tremont get across. We have an underpass down on 116th Street. The cars on 106th Street go much faster than the cars on 116th Street. And my own observation, I don't have any way of knowing, but it appears to be that the cars on 106th Street never go only 40 miles an hour, except for me. So, just some things to think about as you're designing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Good to see you. Anybody else? If not, we will close the public hearing. Do you have any questions from our council?
Mayor, clarification. So it's a maximum of 15,000,
For the project, yes.
not 15 for the city, 15 total.
Correct.
12 and 3.
Correct, yes.
That's a question.
Yeah, absolutely, yep.
Well, thank you.
And there'll be more information on the neighborhood matching grant as we get closer to application time. I think we're working on putting that material together and getting that out the door, I think, in the next 30 to 60 days, obviously pending the budget approval.
Questions, comments? Yes?
Whoops. Thank you very much. A few things, a few comments, a few questions, please. You know, overall, I'm really pleased with the level of detail and transparency of this budget. The conversations and the additional information that I requested that has been supplied has really greatly been appreciated. I am very focused on making sure our citizens are aware of this budget, and my few notes today. One is, today was to be our first reading. That is what citizens are going to go back and refer to and look at, whether the video or the notes, so that they can get up to speed about this budget. Just because today is the public hearing and public comment does not mean this is the only opportunity for our residents to speak into next year's budget. So I just want to make sure that is all on the city website, the budget page. I don't know the URL, but I do know it ends with /budget, and I do recommend that citizens go there. But if I could make the request that web page be updated, and be sure it has the video from both this presentation and the August presentation. It feels to me like the August City Council meeting presentation by the mayor was more detailed and more robust, and that was considered the intro. This is the first reading of the 2024 budget, and I just want to be sure that's accessible to citizens. But again, overall, I appreciate the level of detail and transparency. The proposed property tax rate for this budget has indeed decreased, but it's a small amount, and please correct me, I want to be sure that citizens are aware, and all of us are aware, that does not mean that citizens' property tax bills will go down, because the tax rate is also paired with assessed value. So I hope I'm stating that correctly, but I just want to set that expectations for our citizens. However, a decrease in property tax rate is a good thing, and definitely appreciated by this year's budget. The budget priorities this year are, I would consider nuts and bolts, more to speak to what Mr. Wood mentioned. Nuts and bolts, must-haves, not nice-to-haves, needs-to-haves are what's in the budget. And I really appreciate that, because that's what I hear a lot from citizens. I also agree with Mr. Wood's comment about the amount of cash reserves. And as a member of the Finance Committee, I do want to be sure at our next Finance Committee meeting, and we will have a second and final reading of this budget in our October City Council meeting. I want to be sure that those cash reserves are really studied critically, because I feel, as Mr. Wood mentioned, our cash reserves are still extraordinarily high. They're more than double what is considered best practice or recommended. So I would like to receive more information from the administration about why we're spending down in great ways $12 million, but not 15 or 20 or more, to just get that, I think, more in line. The cash reserves are indeed citizens' tax contributions to our city, and I want to be sure that we're accountable in using that correctly. Two more comments, and that is, I'm also really interested in like the 10,000 foot view of this budget. That includes comparing it to previous year's budget and seeing the pathway that the city of Fishers has taken. I'm very interested in how debt has been incurred by the city over time, where we are right now, and where debt service payments in 2024 fit into this budget. Some of that information has been shared, but again, I'm looking to that kind of detailed work is done in the Finance Committee, a public meeting, and so I would ask Chairman Weingart if we could add that to our Finance Committee meeting upcoming, so that for second reading in this budget that we have that detail. City debt is very important in the overall picture of our municipal finances. And last, there is Michael Hicks is a Ball State University economist, one of the most well-renowned economists in our state, I think nationally as well. And he just released information that I just took to heart, and it said very clearly, a municipal elected official #1 priority should be the strengthening of public schools. So I take that to heart. I agree with it 100%. We know HSC Schools is the centerpiece of our community, what makes our community strong. So I am very, very supportive of the school grants that are part of the cash reserve investment that is part of this budget. Thank you for allowing me to share those comments. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Only comment I have, and I think, John, you and I were probably the only ones here when it occurred, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember when we first got on council, when we were town and you were still doing the budgets, that we dipped into those cash reserves so we didn't increase property taxes on the residents, and that's one of the reasons why we keep a cash reserve. And certainly I think that the public can understand that, you know, with everything going on in the world today and in the country and in the state, you know, we've got, you know, not the most rosy of pictures looking forward, and I think it's just being prudent that we keep an excess, because we always had an excess prior, Scott, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we were always over that bare number limit, if I recall.
Well, I think great questions, great observations from our resident. One of the unique things, we've talked about this a lot, we're in this 3 to 4 year window of where we had this legislation done with Carmel that pushed a bunch of money your way. Over $20 million of that excess cash that we're talking about was a one-time allotment from the Carmel Fishers lit distribution, the inequality of that. So part of the reason you're seeing a significantly higher amount of cash reserves than you otherwise would is not necessarily year in and year out us hoarding tax dollars that come in. It's that we received over a 4 year period of time these one-time allotments, and we wanted to make sure that if you're going to spend that money, you spend it on one-time items, because you don't want to go hire a bunch of people on one-time money and then have to deal with a structural budget deficit. So we do, to your point, Councilmember Peterson, we do tend to be conservative and usually put back more money than we spend. But this budget, if you look at it, this $50 million that we're talking about, it's not reflective of year in and year out spending. It's reflective of that plus this Carmel allotment of money that came over. So we've been pretty judicious in spending it, like I said, because we didn't know, first of all, we couldn't predict whether we were going to receive it or not. And then when we did receive it, we just never wanted to tie ongoing expenses to that. Now, a lot of these other comments, I 100% agree that we should continue to drive for efficiencies, continue to drive that tax rate down. That's been a goal of ours. Assessments, we're sensitive to the fact that communities on fixed incomes, people on fixed incomes are feeling those assessed values, so we want to continue to drive down our tax rate. I applaud the schools in their referendum proposal for reducing their tax rate. And so I think if we work together as governmental entities, we can actually try to lessen the burden on our taxpayers by coordinating and collaborating. So all good takeaways from our perspective, certainly things we will continue to work on. But I just want to, again, say that there's a big chunk of that money that is really just, and frankly, it's taxpayers of Fishers who have paid for Carmel for 30 years, that money is now finally its way back to Fishers.
Can I add something to that?
Yep.
You know, Carmel has a lawsuit too, so we have to manage risk. And I don't know if there's a clawback on that or not, should they win.
It's a great question. I certainly, not in the last 3 years, but looking forward, and that's why we want to be careful, to your point, Councilmember Giffel, that we're not spending money that we don't have yet. You know, the $12 million, as we looked at it, to Councilwoman Bear's point, we really felt like sidewalks, things of that nature, are not necessarily lavish items, but rather what we hear from residents time and time again is fix my sidewalk. Great about all the economic development, but fix my sidewalk. And so we had a unique opportunity here to really double down on the things that frankly make life livable in their neighborhoods.
Brad?
Just on a personal note that I would like to express to back up the mayor. I was a mayor of Greenfield in 2008. Got elected in November. January I go into office and we hit a recession. And if cities don't have cash reserves for that, and as Pete mentioned, we could be going into a recession. And in the situation that I personally dealt with, developers went bankrupt, builders went bankrupt, subcontractors went bankrupt. Now the city makes all of these people post bonds. I was not very cooperative. I gave them a 30-day notice and I pulled bonds. In 6 months, the bonding companies went bankrupt. And many, many, many of the cities of Indiana had a financial problem. There was no bonding companies to replace the money that was needed for just to run your city, let alone streets, da-da-da-da-da. So when you see that number, and as a resident sitting on your side, I understand. Why do we have all that cash? Let me tell you, as a mayor who has gone through it, I was very, very thankful we had that cash. And every time somebody mentions something, I keep saying, get it bigger, get it bigger. When we hit that recession, you won't believe how much money it's going to take to keep the city running. So I understand your concerns. I really, really do. But let me tell you, I've been through it personally as a mayor. And I don't know what I would have done to run that city if I hadn't had those reserves, because I beat the bonding companies. So that's backing up the mayor. We can have as much as we want because that day is going to come.
Hang on.
And the way the economy is going in the United States right now, I don't know if a 5% raise for our employees will even help them out when we're at an 8% inflation rate already.
One thing that we will be watching carefully, and I think Elliot will do a great job discussing this in the Finance Committee, some of that cash due, and the gentleman brought it up, the inflation on construction and things of that nature. So these road projects, you know, they're continuing to escalate at historic rates. Right away, utility relocations are all just significantly higher than what you would have thought 2, 4, 6 years ago. And so having some cash on hand to be able to make up those gaps so you can still get your road projects done is going to be critically important as we move forward.
Todd's next.
Yep, sorry, Todd.
So there was a comment with regard to the $500,000 for the schools, and while I do appreciate that differential there in terms of the buckets, I think it's so imperative for us to lead by example with our schools and be there for them, and this investment into our teachers, and especially as this referendum's coming up, the importance of this referendum in our community, because if our schools are not strong, then our community will not be strong, and we will have, we have these glowing things right now to report. Without the schools, I think that picture changes dramatically in the future. So I applaud this opportunity.
Just a second.
Elliot, I was wondering if you could just address for the gentleman that was asking about the ladder trucks. Could you just explain what you explained to us about the longevity and the fleet of the ladder trucks, and also the administration costs? From what I've understand, we run a tight ship in terms of personnel. We're not heavy on unneeded personnel. We have good people that do a lot of the work, And so could you touch on that as well, please?
Yeah, happy to. To the mayor's point, we will always strive for more efficient government in our personnel and our use of assets and funding. So on the fleet question specifically, when I started with the city almost 10 years ago, a ladder truck costs about $850,000 to $900,000. We're projecting a new ladder truck that costs about $1.8 to $1.9 million now. And so in our $3 million proposal for fleet specifically, we're budgeting just for a third of that cost in 24, 25, and 26, because it's also anticipated to take 3 years for that build out. Now we have a fantastic fleet department in the city of Fishers with fantastic mechanics run really well by Tabitha Miller. So we maintain those in-house. We hope to get 16 to 18 years of longevity out of those assets. It's typically the engine hours more so than the actual mileage on those vehicles, but our team in-house does a fantastic job. We're really proud of the work they do on ladder trucks, injured trucks, medics, police vehicles, the whole 9 yards. To the point though, again, on that $3 million budget, every single item with the exception of 3 new police vehicles and a trailer are replacement assets. We're not building our fleet footprint. We're replacing existing assets that we have right now.
I think one thing that wasn't talked a lot about in the budget, but I'd like to touch on it, is our employees went under this journey and leap of faith, frankly, with the administration on our healthcare plan. You know, a couple of years ago, and we've really been working at this for a better part of 5 years, migrating all of our employees over to a direct network with Community Health. And that's a big lift to ask your employees to now go to only one healthcare provider. But we worked collectively with our staff, and it's been extraordinary. So this upcoming year, I think, Ellie, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're actually going to reduce healthcare costs for the city.
A 2% reduction in costs from 23 to 24, correct.
And then we have a guarantee of it being no more than a 3% increase on an annual basis for the next 4 years.
Correct.
So we're really locking in what has been a very toxic, cost driver for most employers. And that was really our employees working together with the administration to try to come up with an innovative way to start negotiating direct contracts with the healthcare providers. And we're excited about that. And frankly, by controlling that cost, it allows us to go do some of these other things. It allows us to add additional staff and things of that nature. Otherwise, healthcare costs, I think this year they said it was going to be on average across the country somewhere between 7 and 10% increase, and we're looking at 2% reduction. So hopefully that trend continues. And the good news is that our employees are getting great service from the healthcare provider. We're not skimping in any way in that regard, but we're also able to save some taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Scott. Just to kind of follow, get this conversation to a point where we can have first reading. The Budget Finance Committee, we've met three different occasions, public meeting. There's been open the public, had some citizens actually show up for those meetings, and certainly encourage that. Absolutely agree. It's your money. If you have questions about it, you should be asking us, and also if you have time, attend the meetings. We've gone through. Mike Reuter, our financial consultant, gone through our fiscal plan. We've talked to department heads. We've actually brought in an additional group of department heads to ask other questions and quiz them. We have talked about their debt structure, our debt structure. I think the other piece to kind of look at both sides of the balance sheet, we need to look at assessed value, what's changed there to show kind of what we brought onto our balance sheet, but not only just the debt, but also the assets. Secondly, I want to thank everybody for coming forward tonight and asking us to do better. I appreciate those questions, appreciate the comments this evening. And as this will move forward, we'll have another Budget and Finance meeting in October. We'll have another Budget and Finance meeting in October. This will come back forward for second and final reading as well. And certainly, if you have questions or concerns, don't be bashful about coming and talking to us either after this meeting or even if you have questions after that. Our numbers are actually on our website, so you can certainly reach out to us, and we do answer our phones. We do return our emails. So with that, I'll ask for first reading.
First reading.
I'm sorry, I have one last comment, please.
Sure.
I just wanted to add a note about the cash reserves. I am certain no one is advocating to spend down the cash reserves to 0 or even lower than what is recommended. The question that I have for the administration that I would love to see more detail on by next month is the cash reserve strategy. And thankfully, we received that last year upon, I had requested that last year. It has since evolved. So what I'm looking for is the anticipation of the strategy for cash reserves and the rationale behind the number that you are proposing right now, which is 12 million to be spent down. And pardon me, at the end of 2024, the estimated cash reserve number is
Requirement is.
Sure.
The requirements is 15, but with this proposal, we'd have 39.7 million.
remaining after the 12.
After the 12.
After the
right?
12.
Yes.
So if we could have more detail on that
Absolutely.
for our October Finance Committee meeting, that public meeting, as well as information as President Weingarten said, debt and asset
Yep.
analysis, I think that would be helpful, and thank you.
One quick little question I meant to ask at the Finance Committee. I had asked about the adult changing tables at the Agri Park. Will there also be a plan for the adult changing table at the Hub and Spoke restroom?
When we build the new restroom, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll certainly incorporate that in the restroom. Yep.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Again, thank you all very much for your questions, for your comments, for your interest this evening. We'll continue this process and come back at you next month, the next council meeting, for hopefully final approval. Moving on to item 9, a request to approve the 2024 salary ordinance.
I did first reading.
Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. For the record, Ethan Lee, Director of Human Resources. I'm here to present the first reading of the city's 2024 salary ordinance. A reminder that the Indiana Code requires that the city's legislative body, by ordinance, fix the annual compensation of each position title. The city has chosen to elect a biweekly salary schedule to establish the maximum salary for each position under this ordinance. Should be noted that any of the proposed changes in this ordinance or to the existing 2023 ordinance do not have any financial impact or have been included in the proposed 2024 budget. Other than adjusting for the proposed 5% employee wage increase, these changes are intended to update position titles and salary grades to better align with current roles and to remain competitive with market conditions and industry standards. So our proposed changes for the 2024 salary ordinance are as follows. In our administration, we want to add the new position title of Chief of Staff and change the city attorney title to Corporation Counsel. And the Health Department want to add a new position title of Deputy Director of Finance and Operations. Community Center, add new position titles as Director of Community Center and Membership Manager, and as Deputy Mayor Elliot Holgren mentioned, these would be positions that would be further down in 2024 as we get closer to that community center. Fleet Public Works want to update the position title of Director of Fleet to now include Director of Fleet and Inventory Control. Also want to add a new position title of Inventory Control Specialist. In our IT department, want to do some updates to the position structures there where we would add or actually update the position title, which is currently Chief Information Officer, to Chief Information Security Officer. Add new position titles of Help Desk Technician 1, 2, and Coordinator. And also move the System Administrator position title and Senior System Administrator title to a higher salary grade. In our police department, we are adding the new position title of the Part-Time School Resource Officer, which has been mentioned. Both police and fire, again, mentioned in the budget proposal. We're going to increase the longevity for fire and police from $4,000 annually to a maximum of $5,000 annually. And then last but not least, all city increase of 5% for those biweekly salary amounts for all position titles, including elected officials. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer at this time.
Again, it's just a procedural feature of our meeting tonight as part of the budget. If any questions, I'll have a motion for first reading.
Have first reading.
We have first reading.
I'm going to ask delicately, these are positions, not individuals.
Correct.
Can you provide a little bit more information in the Parks and Rec category? There are 2 directors there, and I was just comparing those directors' salaries with the other directors. Can you just share a little bit more specifics on the grade, do you call it salary grades of those 2 positions? Could you share that, please?
Sure.
I felt, just to be clear, I felt that one was lower than I expected, and that's the nuance of my question.
So you're referring to the new community director position?
There's 2 directors in the Parks and Recs department, a director of Parks and Rec, and a director of Recreation and Wellness. And there's a substantial difference between those 2 directors. And one's a newer position.
Correct.
So that's the nuance of my question.
Okay, yeah, so the Director of Parks and Recreation has been a long time position over our Parks and Recreation Department, obviously. The Director of Health and Wellness was a new position added last year to the salary ordinance, which is actually the Parks and Recreation Director reports to that position. Understandably, they both have director in their title, but when you look at our structure, that reports up to the
I
Health
appreciate
and Wellness.
That's what I needed
Okay.
to understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that will be the same as far as the community director that's part of this ordinance proposal would also report up to the health and wellness director. Sure. Any
Thank
other
you,
questions?
Ethan. Moving to item 10, a resolution approving an allocation area, the District South project. Good evening, Lisa.
Evening. For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you is related to the District South project. As you guys recall, the District South project was brought for your approval a few months ago, and as part of that will create an allocation area. And as a refresher, an allocation area allows us to capture the tax increment financing generated from that to help go to the debt service that will be provided to help with the project for District South. So this item before you is a statutory step to the District South project and is part of the project agreement that was approved. This has been through the Plan Commission and was approved by the Plan Commission, so it's before you for final approval.
Any questions for Lisa on this item?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second? A second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you, Lisa. Moving on to item 11, economic development and an ordinance of the Common Council approving a riverfront district designation. Looks like we're doing first, second, and third reading tonight.
Yes,
So we'll be suspending the rules, is what you're saying.
that is part of my request, yes.
Okay. We'll be ready.
For the record, Megan Baumgartner, Director of Community and Economic Development. The item tonight is a statewide designation that we're able to achieve. And so I'll give a little bit of background of what the Riverfront District actually allows for. So liquor licenses, there's 2 different types of liquor licenses, 2-way and 3-way. 2-way is beer and wine, 3-way is hard liquor, beer and wine. And within Hamilton County, if you'll recall, this is a very tight market for 3-way liquor licenses. Raising the cost for companies and restaurants to be able to acquire those permits and acquire those licenses. And so the state has created a program that is broadly defined as a riverfront district. And so we worked with a highly regarded consultant within this space to be able to help us designate and request a designation tonight for a proposed riverfront district. So this allows for, and so again, standard practice with the ATC, the Alcohol and Tobacco Commission, it is a limited amount of 3-way liquor licenses are allowed on the market. This designation allows for an infinite amount of liquor licenses within within this specific area. And so again, this is around the new Union with Thompson Thrift, the Fishers Event Center, all of the development that will go around there, and then really what we're seeing as an extension of the exciting things happening within the Fishers Event Center and expanded Fishers District. So it's within 1,000 feet of a flowing body of water, but you're also able to go that extends beyond undeveloped areas. And so as you'll see, the area in green is the requested proposed boundaries for this designation. The white area is showing areas that can't be developed because existing development is in place. So no sort of capture of taxes or allocation of funding. It truly is just a designation request. And so then that process would be facilitated similar to the Nickel Play District cultural arts designation that allows for a certain amount of liquor licenses that the city council controls right now. It would go through a similar process for anything within this area. So happy to answer any questions. Again, requesting a suspension of the rules to approve this tonight.
I think one comment, if I may, I think this certainly helps small restaurants and small entrepreneurs who are culinary entrepreneurs, because the fact that there are a finite amount of those in Fishers today, whether they're in this space or another, the price of these become almost prohibitive for someone who wants to have a small restaurant and have a liquor license. And so by creating a larger number of them, even if it's limited to this area, it alleviates the overall market, which might bring down the values of those so people can find them attainable. So we think this is a good exercise. Otherwise, I think the demand is so high that it's gonna price a lot of our smaller restaurants out of the ability to attain one of these, at least the 3-way liquor license for sure.
What creek did we use for this?
Well, it's
it's in blue.
It's appropriately, it's in blue.
I believe it's Sand Creek. It does.
Yeah. We may not be able to put a riverboat for casinos on it, but we will.
Depends on the unincorporated residents to flush their toilets or something, right?
So Indianapolis has done this, Carmel has done this. So this is something, it's a great tool, again, for us to be able to promote some additional.
Motion to
restaurants.
suspend the rules and approve on first reading.
Second.
I have a motion by Pete and a second by Selena to suspend the rules. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete to approve. Do I have a second? I'll second it.
Second.
Motion by Pete, second by John. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you, Megan.
Nope. Just the arts and cultural district was all we've done so far today.
So moving on to item 12, consideration of a text amendment to the Sandstone Gray Eagle PUD to allow a barrier net system and restaurant. Final reading.
Good evening. For the record, Ross Hillary, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Sounds good, doesn't it, Ross?
Yeah.
It does, yeah.
Congratulations, Ross,
Thank
and
you.
welcome.
Before you tonight is ordinance 061923B, which is a text amendment to Sandstone Gray Eagle PUD. As an agent of Gray Eagle Golf Course, they are requesting a text amendment for the PUD to allow a barrier net system and a restaurant use. The current only allowed use is a golf course. As part of this text amendment, an illustrative architecture exhibit for the new building is incorporated. These were approved before PUD committee in September of last year. The new building will feature 1- and 2-story hitting bays, a restaurant, and a bar. The barrier net system would allow for an accessory structure to support the new golf club. The maximum height permitted would be 160 feet in total. An illustrative lighting exhibit is also included, which shows a maximum foot candle of 0.2. Our UDO currently allows 0.5, so they're actually reducing their maximum light output. Staff did receive public comments in support as well as in opposition, and those were provided to you guys in our staff report. Plan Commission met in September and sent a favorable recommendation to council. Staff does recommend approval, but I will pass it off to Craig DeVault, who will be presenting on behalf of the Gray Eagle Golf LLC.
Good evening, Stephanie Truchon with Krieg DeVault on behalf of Gray Eagle. I won't belabor this. Ross did an excellent job of kind of refreshing everybody's memory on this project. So again, this is the overall site plan, including the apartments to the south, which have already been approved, which we're not talking about tonight. Some renderings of the restaurant, and again, this is just to allow for what is already kind of currently existing on the property. The PUD that was passed in the 90s did not account for the safety netting around the driving range, which is now necessary because you have the.
Oh, because maybe what we need to do is put some pressure on
Well,
these companies to do their job. But again, I guess to Pete's point, like, we don't want to put all this time and effort into something and then the majority of people don't want that, right? So
Well, I think
is
there's
there a
no-
way to find out? And the other thing too that I've gotten emails on is leaf collection in the fall. Like, is there a service that would collect the leaf bags? That's another thing that I would like to look into if we're going to start looking into this.
So that's a recent phenomenon. I think Ray's probably provided that in the past, and now Waste Management does not.
Well, I
it's
think
probably
Carmel has it negotiated into their contract somehow that they pick them up. But if you're an individual here in Fishers
Yep.
and you're using that same trash company, they don't do that for individuals.
Right. Absolutely. And Councilwoman Colby, to your question, every HOA has their own contract, and then there are lots of neighborhoods that maybe the HOA says, we're not gonna provide that contract for you. So then literally, you're talking homeowner by homeowner has a different trash company. You could go down the street and have like a Waste Management bin and a Republic bin, and in the past, you'd have a Ray's trash bin. So it's, I mean, it's kind of all over the board, to be honest with you, and depending upon the current service, they might be happy with them or they may not be happy with them. Some HOAs take a great deal of pride in what they've been able to negotiate. Mike, you probably have spent some time on this issue. Yeah, so I figured, yeah. So look,
Well-
I think eyes wide open, we can talk about the process, and I would be honestly, the same thing that happened last time, which is we went through the exercise, we presented to the community and said, here's the pricing, and if the community decides that that's not what they want, then all we're really out is some administrative work and then, getting a handful of, passionate emails.
It's too bad you didn't do that, because I'd probably be paying $40 a quarter rather than $100 a quarter fee.
It was, yeah.
Choice to do it, David.
Yeah, citizens said no.
We didn't get a vote on
It was perplexing from a cost perspective.
It was
'cause,
a hard no
we,
from them.
We did actually, and we can do this again, we surveyed HOAs to find out what their monthly bill was at the time. I want to say it averaged around $20 a month. And for us to be able to negotiate a $9 a month deal, and then to have the community come out so vigorously and say, absolutely not, we want to have autonomy, this isn't communism. There was a variety of conversations that were being had, was pretty perplexing.
Just two comments. I live in Britton Falls, and 30% of us are gone during the winter.
Right.
And our waste management was making a killing, so my wife and I, for 3 weeks, counted every Friday and went back and renegotiated the bill. Because 30% were gone for 6 months. The other thing, just personally, I like less government, and I'm not for the city doing trash. That's just another government involvement in your lives, and I think you should be able to make the decision on what you want to do, and I don't want more administration problems, and now we gotta hire 5 girls sitting here all day long taking phone calls about trash complaints. So, me personally, let everybody decide what they'd like to do with their trash.
Well, I will bring back the process for you guys to consider, and then we can go from there.
Moving on, open up for community comment. Anybody wishing to come forward, please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes. I'll give you 3.5.
Thank you. My name is Mike Colby at 7105 Cold Lake Drive. Actually, I had planned to come up and talk about the trash service before David Giffel spoke up.
Stole your thunder, huh?
You know, I remember I was on the town council when we talked about doing this, and the old adage, you can please some of the people some of the time, most of the people most of the time, but not all the people all the time. What I'd like to have you take a look at, in addition to the money, I'm in a community with a lot of seniors and a lot of widowers, and Rays would allow them to drag their bag down to the end of the driveway and set it down. Now we have a 96-gallon container, and I have a couple of women that have called me, and I have nothing to do with the thing. I tell everybody, between you and Waste Management or Republic, the trash bin is taller than they are, and when the snow comes and there's ice on the driveway, it's going to be a problem. Now, I had a smaller 82 or 84 gallon that worked just fine. And Waste Management came out and dropped a big one on my driveway. So I just wish that there's some way in which, if you're going to take a look at that, to try to leverage Waste Management, The other thing is there is a trash service, Priority Trash Service. They are the Zionsville Trash Service. And I called them. And I said, hey, you guys interested in coming to Indiana? They said, well, we're in Zionsville. I said, well, you have fertile ground over here in Fishers. The problem is you got Republic and you got Waste Management. Both of them are bad, in my opinion. And I have resisted taking on any responsibility for the HOA, taking on that responsibility, because I'll get the calls. Yeah. And Waste Management, they'll go down the street and they'll pick up trash on one side of the street and not on the other. Or they're supposed to pick up on Tuesday, they don't show up, they're picking up on Wednesday. And then they and Republic are the only game in town. So I don't know what can be done, but it's a big issue for us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good to see you. Anybody else wishing to come forward?
Was there someone coming? Sorry.
Come on up.
Actually, it's not why I'm here to talk about this, but since you brought it up, I want to first of all thank everybody in the city council, mayor's office for what you've done for the Grego community. I applaud your efforts. It's been 6 years in this process, but that's not why I'm here. I'm Dave Brackenoff from the Grego, no longer on the HOA board, just a private resident now. It's interesting you brought this concept up because my younger brother actually was authored and authorized in the city of Elyria, Ohio to do this study. He regretted every moment he spent doing it because you can't win. And it was just, he spent, like I said, a year and a half of doing this, working for the city, and it just didn't work out too well. But what they did do was they actually served as a facilitation for residents in an area, said, let's be your facilitator, we'll negotiate those rates, because we use Republic and Grey Eagle, and by and large, we've got close communication with them. There are no problems overall with them. But you'll have a different experience from a different community. They all quote different times and different processes all the time. So I kind of recommend maybe going an easier route than trying to do this through the city, because was absolute terrible for him. Thank you.
Could I add one thing? Jeff Tees has been doing some polling with the HOA on this very topic. Forgot to mention
Yeah.
when I was up there. It started off with a 5G coalition, and now it's kind of grown into a bigger group. And I think you have something scheduled in February for HOA.
Yeah.
So you might want to reach out to Jeff, use his network, try to get some people involved, and maybe when you have a meeting in February, you'll have some real.
Well, and to Dave's point, I mean, you could do the legwork administratively as a city. If we could get 20 or 30 HOAs coordinated to say, let's bid 20 HOAs, and then you can always have like at the state, you can jump onto state contracts. You can leverage their buying power, but you don't have to use it. But it's an opportunity if you want to jump onto that contract. Administratively, that's something that the city could contemplate doing. So there's, again, we can bring a variety of solutions forward that we can take a look at.
Yeah, because I think Westfield, they contract, but yet customer service is done through the trash service, right?
It's a variety of different ways, yes. No matter what, if we step in the middle of any of this, we will be blamed for it one way or another. So, yeah.
Anybody else wishing to come forward? Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sue Anthony Fulmer, 13857 Canopy Lane. We've had a lot of trash talk tonight, which was not what we expected.
Good.
But what we haven't talked about is recycling, and I think that's the bigger
Sure,
problem
it
with
is.
the town, with the city, is there's no recycling. I think that's the study that needs to be done.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and in my neighborhood, I live in Windermere, and we do have recycling as part of our trash pickup as well. So we have 2 different dumpsters, one for
In the
recycling.
contract that we had contemplated before, we were going to have that available to every resident.
We want to have that as well.
We have our yearly or every 6-month recycling, but there's far more need.
For sure.
And
Yes.
we're such a progressive city,
Yeah.
but we are so far behind.
There were some unique opportunities too with trash company, if I recall correctly, that the city could receive either monetary, you could either receive money back on the commodity of the recycling, or you you got material, so like recycled park benches made out of recycled plastic. There's a variety of different programs that can be put into those that kind of close the loop, so to speak. So certainly an interesting concept.
We were a 35-plus year client of Ray's, and when they transitioned to Waste Management, we felt that pain greatly, and or were bought by Waste Management, but we've since gone to GHW. So if we're going to go down that path, that's another player in the field.
Great. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Anybody else? Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Jack Fulmer. I live at 13857 Canopy Lane. Just talking about the recycling. My boss lives in Florida, and he says, well, where do people take their couches and mattresses? Don't you have a recycling facility? It's like, we have one right down the road. Yard waste. So there's not a transfer station in this area, and we see a lot of dumping on our properties due to that. A lot of it's yard waste, a lot of it's household furniture, appliances. And so to kind of look at that and see, is there a company that we can bring into this area in the right place of town that could provide that service for our community and really take us to, you know, a different level of what we're trying to achieve overall.
Great point.
Thank you. At this point, seeing no one else coming forward.
Yeah.
Crystal?
I just want to make a quick comment, and I want to wish everyone happy National Hispanic Heritage Month. Happy, yeah, I'm so happy about it. Felicidades. And with that, I definitely want to recognize and acknowledge my my amiga, my council hermana, the very first Latina councilwoman to be elected to Fisher City Council, that's Cecilia Coble. And just want to thank her for everything within my community. Thank you.
Oh, gracias. Gracias. Thank you, Crystal. You're so kind.
At this point,
September 15th through October 15th.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.